Discover the hidden journey, amazing changes revealed for our heartwarming baby's life. Sarah cradled her newborn son, Jake, in the dim light of her tiny apartment. As she looked down at his peaceful face, the weight of motherhood pressed heavily on her heart. At just 24, she was a single mother in Harmony Glen, a quaint town where the whispers about her echoed louder than the laughter of children playing outside. Can she really do it? They'd say. What kind of future can she provide? Those quiet doubts wrapped around her like a thick fog, but she quickly brushed them aside, determined to create a better life for her son. Every morning, dawn broke with the clatter of plates as Sarah served breakfast at the local diner. The smell of sizzling bacon and fresh coffee hung in the air. The diner was a gathering place, where townsfolk swapped stories, shared laughter, and sometimes, the kind words offered toward her were hard to come by. Every smile felt like a fragile shield against judgment, yet she wore it like armor. She loved Jake fiercely, and his tiny fingers curled around hers gave her hope for what could be. With each cup of coffee she poured, she envisioned bright futures for him, far beyond the struggle of their present life. But Harmony Glen was shifting. An economic storm brewed, and whispers morphed into stares laden with skepticism. Heads turned when she walked through town, pushing the stroller with determination. Another single mother, they'd murmur, as if her very existence challenged their beliefs about families. It stung, but she fought to maintain her dignity. Motherhood was a challenge, nothing could shake her commitment to Jake. Then, one fateful afternoon, the sky opened up. A sudden storm swept through the town, bringing chaos in its wake. Trees toppled, streets flooded, and with her home in disarray, Sarah knew she had to act. As debris littered the streets, she joined her neighbors in a powerful display of community resilience. She filled sandbags and passed out water, her heart racing as she felt the lines between love and fear blur. She would not only rebuild her town, she had spent too long waiting for someone to notice her worth. In the midst of the wreckage, a memory stirred. Her father, a veteran, had walked away from their life, trapped in his struggles. The thought of facing him felt like a crack of thunder, overwhelming and terrifying. Would he even be the father she needed him to be? Heart pounding, Sarah ventured into those swirling memories and old wounds, seeking the man she had once aspired to understand. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The AIDS Center became a hub of both despair and hope. Sarah pushed through, handing out blankets, occasionally catching glimpses of familiar faces from her past. But it was the man hunched in the corner, his eyes filled with unshed tears, that pulled at her heartstrings. Could it be? The one person she had longed to confront, now sitting silently among the wreckage of their shared history. As the storm settled, leaving an unsettling silence, she was faced with a choice. Would she confront her father, risking the pain of rejection for Jake's sake? Or would she choose to walk away, keeping her heart safe from the swirling emotions? Outside, the winds whispered their secrets, urging her to decide. The questions lingered in the air like the scent of rain. Were family ties strong enough to mend the wounds of the past? With every moment that ticked by, she felt a deeper storm gathering, not just in the world outside, but within her soul. The weight of the moment hung heavy in the AIDS Center, the smell of wet wood and despair mingling in the air. Sarah's heart raced as she stood before the man who was supposed to protect her, who had slipped away when she needed him the most. Memories of him reading her bedtime stories, the warmth of his laughter, flooded back. But so did the pain of his absence. Doubt began to creep in, cloaked in the uncertainty of the past. As she took a tentative step forward, her breath caught. What would she say? Dad? The word felt foreign, as if it had grown dust over the years. The man looked up, his eyes glassy and filled with unspoken sorrow. Familiar shadows danced across his weathered face. Time had etched deep lines into his skin, but his eyes, they were still the same deep blue, holding a world of regret. Sarah, he whispered, the name edged with a vulnerability she had longed to hear. It filled her with warmth but also with confusion. Did he regret leaving? Did he ever think about her? Why did you come back? She found herself asking, surprising even herself. The question hung between them like a tightrope, swaying in the air as they both balanced on the brink of an emotional ledge. I didn't mean to disappear, I was lost, he stammered, his voice strained. I thought distance would help, but it only hurt. She felt a pang of understanding, a flicker of the little girl who had once idolized her father despite everything. You think you can just waltz back into my life now? After all those years? Pain and anger bubbled up, mixing with that lingering flicker of hope. What have you done to deserve this chance? His shoulders sagged, the weight of her words pressing harder than any physical burden he had ever carried. I want to make things right, I want to be here for you now, for Jake. For a heartbeat, Sarah considered his words, the idea of him being there for her son, of breaking away from the past. It was terrifying yet exhilarating. You can't just show up and expect me to trust you. I have Jake to think about. She glanced down at her son, wrapped snugly in his stroller, blissfully unaware of the turmoil swirling around them. But Jake needed a stable family, and the thought of her own father stumbling back into her life was a whirlwind. Could he truly change? Was reconciliation even feasible? I'll prove it to you, he urged, his voice breaking. Just give me a chance. Be honest with me, and I'll do everything I can to be there. Sarah felt her heart tugging in two directions, her own yearning for a family battling against the fear of bringing in someone who could leave again. She wanted to protect Jake from any more pain, yet the flicker of hope for the family she once dreamed of was hard to deny. As she wrestled with her decision, a flash of lightning jolted outside, illuminating the wreckage of Harmony Glen. It was as if the universe was calling out, hadn't they all been ravaged by storms? The silence was suffocating. Then, amid her anxiety, another thought struck. Perhaps this was not just a chance for him to redeem himself. Perhaps it was an opportunity for herself, too. An opportunity to heal, to confront the past head-on, even if it terrified her. Fine, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper but stronger than she felt inside. But this is just the start. You have to earn my trust and Jake's. As relief washed over his face, mingling with disbelief, Sarah felt the tiniest flicker of hope ignite within her. It wouldn't be easy, but she had decided to try, to open that door despite the heavy chains of uncertainty. Outside, the storm clouds cleared, revealing the fading light of dusk. With each passing moment, she realized that perhaps they were both lost souls, both needing to find the way home. But just then, a sharp cry pierced the air, a sound from near the back of the aid center that sent ice down Sarah's spine. She turned toward the sound, instinctively clutching Jake closer. What was that? A new fear gripped her heart, tangling with the decisions she had just made. Something's wrong, her father urged, worry carved deep into his face. And in that moment of tension, Sarah knew that the storm wasn't over yet. The room felt charged, every breath held captive by the anxious anticipation of what lay ahead. Sarah's heart thundered like the storm that had just passed, and she found herself torn between the shadows of her past and the uncertainty of this moment. Holding Jake tightly, she fought against the urge to flee, to escape the confrontation that was growing heavier by the second. Another sharp cry echoed through the aid center. It was followed by a chorus of murmurs, nervous energy rippling through the small crowd that had gathered. What could it be? A child needing comfort? Or something darker? Dad, let's check it out, she urged, her voice firm despite the quivers beneath. She needed to know. Not just for Jake, but for herself too, she craved clarity. The storm may have passed outside, but a tempest brewed within her. Her father nodded, his expression a mixture of fear and determination, traits she had inherited. Together, they moved towards the source of the noise, the air thick with tension. With each step, Sarah felt as if she were crossing a threshold, stepping into a space filled with both past and possibilities. As they rounded the corner, the sight that met them sent her heart plummeting. In the corner of the AIDS center, a small boy, no older than Jake, sat on the floor, tears streaking down his dirt-smeared face. He was grasping a stuffed bear, its fur tattered and worn. Around him, volunteers rushed about, attempting to soothe his cries, the chaos of the scene stark against the calm she had just found within herself moments earlier. "Hey there, buddy," she said softly, kneeling beside him. The boy looked up, wide-eyed and blinking back fresh tears. "What's wrong?" "My mom. She left to find help and I don't know where she is." His tiny frame shook with sobs, the fear palpable. Sarah felt a familiar ache in her chest, one that echoed her own childhood memories of loss and uncertainty. Before she could respond, her father knelt beside her, reaching out a tentative hand. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The boy hesitated but then managed to respond, "Eli." "Eli, I get it. I understand how scary this is," her father said, his tone unusually soothing. He had always been better with kids than she was. "But I promise you, we're going to help you find your mom." The boy nodded slowly, wiping his tears with a grimy sleeve. Sarah watched her father interact, amazed at the tenderness he exuded, a stark contrast to the man she remembered. Suddenly, realization struck her hard. Here, in the face of another's fear, was a chance for her father to prove himself not just to her, but to himself too. As she glanced back at Jake, peaceful and unaware, she felt an inkling of hope growing within her. "Let us do this together," Sarah said, turning to her father. "We need to find Eli's mom. He shouldn't be alone." Their eyes locked, and in that moment, something shifted. This was more than just healing her relationship, it was about coming together as a family, in whatever form that took. As more volunteers joined them, discussing plans to search the area, Sarah could feel the weight of her past lifting. But she was still cautious. Could this feeling last, this camaraderie forged in the fire of uncertainty? Just then, another voice cut through the commotion, a woman frantically rushing in through the doorway, eyes wide with fear. "Eli!" she cried, and panic turned to relief as they locked eyes. But when Eli turned, the joy was shadowed by confusion. He hesitated, glancing between his mom and Sarah and her father, who were now standing close, united by a shared mission. What was this turning point leading to? The moment replayed like a vivid dream as Sarah's mind raced. Was she about to witness a reunion, or the unraveling of old tensions? As they moved closer, she felt that familiar flicker of hope ignite again, but this time, it was brighter. What did this mean for them? And more importantly, how would this play out for her and Jake as they began to navigate this new reality? "Let us just take it one step at a time," she whispered to herself, watching the unfolding scene. But even as she sought strength, questions loomed. Could they continue to help others while finding their own path to healing? Eli's mother rushed forward, her face a mixture of urgency and disbelief as she reached for her son. The moment their eyes met, the air shifted. Eli flew into her arms, and for a fleeting second, everything else faded: the noise, the chaos, even Sarah's own worries. Relief washed over the boy's features, making way for tears that poured anew. "Mom! I was so scared," he sobbed, burying his face into her shoulder. She held him tight, rocking him gently, whispering reassurances that felt almost magical in their simplicity. Watching this reunion, Sarah felt a mix of warmth and longing. She turned to her father, his eyes shimmering with unspoken emotions. Could this moment open the door he needed to heal the scars they both carried? "Sarah," he said softly, his voice cracking. "Look at them." He gestured towards Eli and his mother, still lost in their embrace. "It's beautiful. They needed each other." "Yeah, they did," Sarah replied, her heart swelling with a feeling she hadn't allowed herself in years. "Hope. Just like we do." Her father nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. They both needed to be a part of something bigger than themselves. The AIDS Center, filled with people helping one another, was a living testament of humility, compassion, and the bonds of community. As Eli and his mother eventually turned to face Sarah and her father, the joy of the reunion was still tangled with the remnants of fear. Eli looked small in that moment, cradled by his mother, yet somehow braver for having faced the unknown. "Thank you," she breathed, a tentative smile breaking through her tear-streaked face. "Thank you for being there for him." The words hit Sarah like a bolt of lightning. She barely noticed the volunteers gathering around, eager to help, and it struck her that they were part of a much larger story, one that involved countless lives. Each face around her told a tale of struggle and resilience, and she wanted more than ever to contribute rather than just observe. "Let us help, together," she declared, surprising even herself with the strength of her voice. She looked at her father, who seemed ready to join her, a shared determination glowing between them. They could find purpose in this work, not just for Eli but for themselves and each other. "I'll help too," Jake chimed in, wide-eyed with excitement. The innocence in his enthusiasm felt like a beacon of light, reminding Sarah just how essential their bond was. "What do you need us to do?" Sarah asked a volunteer, feeling the adrenaline surge within her. The volunteer explained there were supplies to sort and stories to listen to, needs to be met, an endless list of tasks that only showed the depth of the community's pain and hope. As they dove into the work, Sarah felt a spark return to her own heart. Time melted away as they packed boxes and listened to others tell their stories of loss, fear, and eventual triumph. With each shared experience, she felt the fragments of her past slowly start to stitch together. But just as they began to find their rhythm, another shout echoed through the center. "Please, we need someone to help on the west side. There's been a flood, and children are trapped." Panic rippled through the gathered crowd, and Sarah glanced at her father. The hope that had blossomed moments ago faced a sudden chill. The situation was chaotic, raw and real, and yet she felt pulsing within her a sense of responsibility. She needed to act. "Let us go," she said, determination hardening her voice. "We can help. We can do this." As they prepared to move, her heart raced with uncertainty but also profound purpose. What did this mean for them as they stepped into yet another unexpected turn in their journey? And would this moment ignite something deeper within her father, that fire she had longed to see come back to life? With one last look at Eli, still holding on to his mother as they absorbed their new reality together, Sarah took a breath, ready to face whatever lay ahead. How far would this journey take them, and could they evolve beyond their own fears into a beacon of hope for others? The air was thick with tension as Sarah and her father hurried through the center, the cry for help echoing in her mind. She could see urgency on the faces around her, some more worry, others determination. Everyone felt it. They had to act. "Come on," she urged, grabbing her father's arm. As they broke into a sprint, Sarah could hear her own heartbeat drumming in her ears. She was scared, but she pushed it aside. There was no time for fear, only action. Once outside, water pooled around their ankles, shimmering under the pale light. It was surreal, witnessing the transformation of ordinary streets into a chaotic scene where nature's fury had transformed familiar places into something foreign and frightening. Shadows of concern crossed her father's face as they waded through the mud and debris, but she couldn't focus on that now. She had to concentrate on moving forward. The sounds of distant cries and frantic shouts grew louder as they approached the west side. Sarah's heart sank. She couldn't shake the dread that clung to her, but she pushed against it. They could help. They had to. When they finally arrived, a cluster of volunteers stood in the thick of the chaos. More people were working to secure buildings and tend to those who needed help. Sarah scanned the crowd, spotting a group of children huddled together, their eyes wide with fear. She could almost feel their terror like it was her own. "Over there," she shouted, pointing to the kids. "We need to get them to safety." Her father nodded and rushed towards them, yelling instructions to other volunteers about establishing a safe path. Sarah moved with him, searching for a way to reassure the frightened children. She knelt down, meeting the gaze of a little girl with tangled hair, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It's going to be okay," Sarah said, her voice gentle but firm. "We're here to help you. Can you be brave for me?" The little girl nodded, fear still swirling in her eyes, but Sarah saw a flicker of trust. Moments later, they had formed a line, ushering the children forward, but just as hope sparked within her, she heard another loud crash. The heavy sound of an unstable structure collapsing nearby rattled Sarah to her core. Panic gripped the crowd. "Stay together!" her father shouted, guiding the children through the rising chaos with a fierce determination. Sarah's heart raced as she searched for a way to navigate the fear and uncertainty unfolding around them. "Nobody gets left behind," Sarah muttered under her breath, echoing the rallying cry she had heard so many times growing up. They were in a world that demanded solidarity, one where their fears could be transformed into strength. Suddenly, she spotted a small boy trapped beneath a piece of debris, clutching a stuffed toy tightly in his arms. His wide eyes reflected pure terror, and Sarah's heart broke. Without thinking, she rushed forward. "I'm coming for you," she shouted, fear forgotten as adrenaline surged through her veins. She lifted the debris as her father and a couple of volunteers rushed to help. "Just a little more," her father grunted, and with one last effort, they freed the boy. He scrambled up, shaking but alive, and he clung to Sarah's leg, looking for comfort. She knelt down and hugged him tightly. "You're safe now. We're going to get you home." But even in that moment of triumph, Sarah felt the weight of uncertainty settle on her shoulders. Would they be able to save everyone? They gathered the children together, ready to lead them through the swelling crowd to safety, but in the distance, she could see more people struggling against the floodwaters, more cries for help reaching her ears. A ripple of doubt passed over her. Could they really help them all? As they moved to the aid of another group, a thunderous roar pierced the air, an ominous reminder that the storm wasn't finished yet. What if things turned worse? What if they couldn't keep them safe? "Hurry!" her father yelled, urging the children forward. The uncertainty sparked something fierce deep inside Sarah, an ember of defiance against despair. They had faced challenges before, she could feel it rising in her heart. "Let us go!" she shouted over the chaos, her voice a beacon cutting through the storm. "We won't give up. We will keep fighting." As they pressed on, Sarah felt the connection deepening not just among the children, but between herself and her father. Would this shared mission lead them to the healing they both desperately sought? With every step, Sarah knew they were not just battling a flood, but also the deeper currents of their own fears and histories. And through it all, a single thought fueled her forward: they were in this together. But as they rounded a corner, the devastation unfolded before them, revealing even more devastation. How could they possibly overcome this now? Would they find the strength to keep going? The floodwaters surged ominously, carrying with them remnants of what once was. Sarah blinked against the overwhelming scene, her heart pounding harshly in her chest. Piles of debris, broken structures, and the cries of those still trapped filled her with a sense of urgency that was hard to shake off. "Look!" her father's voice cut through her thoughts, pointing ahead where a house teetered precariously at the edge of the water, the foundation crumbling. Sarah's stomach twisted. She could see silhouettes moving through the wreckage, desperately trying to save whatever they could. "We need to help them," she yelled, already sprinting toward the crumbling structure. Fear gripped her heart, but she couldn't let it stop her. As they approached, the sight became clearer. A woman stood on the porch, her hands clutching a small baby while yelling for help. The air was thick with hopelessness. This was the moment. She couldn't wait for someone else to act. "Dad! We have to get that baby!" Sarah gestured, determination flooding her veins. Without hesitation, they moved as one, a team. The weight of what they were about to do pressed heavily on her shoulders, but she shook it off. They had to try. "Get ready!" her father called out to some volunteers who had gathered nearby. "We need to create a safety line up to that porch." As they formed a chain and reached the house, Sarah felt a bolt of panic rise in her throat. Every fiber of her being pushed against the logic of fear. "Ma'am!" she shouted, approaching the woman with urgency. "We're here to help. Just hold on tight." The mother nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. She stepped onto the rickety porch, shifting nervously as the structure swayed. Holding the baby against her chest, she seemed to hesitate. Please, Sarah urged, you can do this. Just pass the baby to me. The woman looked torn, but desperation overcame her fear. With trembling hands, she carefully extended the baby, her own heart clearly breaking at the separation. Just like this, sweetheart, I want to let you go. Sarah reassured her, holding her arms wide. There was a collective breath from the crowd, a shared prayer that echoed in their hearts. Finally, the mother released the tiny bundle, and Sarah caught the baby close, feeling the warmth of life within her grasp. Relief washed over her, and tears filled her eyes. She could hear her father's voice directing people as they carefully moved back, pulling the mother to safety. But just as she thought a moment of hope would settle in, another crack sounded beneath them. The porch buckled. Look out! Her father shouted as the ground shifted. In an instant, chaos surged. The volunteers pulled back, panic rippling through the crowd. Sarah's arms tightened instinctively around the baby. Everything began to move in slow motion. Her father reached out to steady the mother, but it was too late. The ground gave way, and with a horrifying creak, a section of the porch collapsed, sending half the steps tumbling down into the violent waters below. No! Sarah screamed, fear clawing at her throat as she instinctively stepped forward, ready to take action. How could she save everyone? Would her father be able to hold on to the mother? But then she felt the grip of hands around her waist pulling her back. Stay here. Her father shouted urgently, we're not done yet. With a sudden rush of adrenaline, Sarah turned, scanning the area for anyone else in danger. They had to keep moving, had to press on through the storm of uncertainty and fear. But as she caught sight of another figure struggling against the debris, her heart sank. How could she possibly make it through this? Sarah! Her father's voice boomed again, snapping her focus back. Get them to safety. But as she faced the chaos around her, an uneasy question began to bubble within her mind. Did they really have what it took to save everyone? Would their determination be enough when the world felt like it was crumbling around them? Sarah clenched her fists tightly around the baby, feeling a fierce resolution ignite deep within her. We can't give up, she declared, her voice rising above the din. Not now. As they prepared to assist the next group, a new roar echoed in the distance. And with it, the threat mounted. What awaited them next? A surge of resolve or an overwhelming wave of despair? Only time would tell. The winds howled, carrying with them the sounds of desperation and chaos. Sarah's heart raced as the roar in the distance grew louder, vibrating through her very core. She couldn't tell if it was the storm or the uncertainty that sent shivers down her spine. Clenching the baby close, she scanned the horizon, determined not to let fear take hold. Her father's voice broke through the tumult. Over here. We need to keep working the lines. Together they joined the volunteers, each person locked in a collective mission reach the next victims of this tragedy. Every second mattered. Stay vigilant. Someone shouted, their tone both urgent and reassuring. Sarah locked eyes with her father, and in that moment, they shared a silent promise. They would not falter. As they pulled another person from the wreckage, Sarah felt the weight of the baby shift in her arms. It was a simple reminder of what they were fighting for. She glanced down at the little face, still secure in her embrace, and felt a surge of renewed determination. Look! One of the volunteers shouted, pointing toward an old sedan almost submerged in the rising water. A frantic young boy clung to the side of the vehicle, his cries piercing the air. Adrenaline surged through Sarah. We have to get him, she yelled, sprinting toward the car, her father right behind her. The water lapped at their feet, cold and relentless, but nothing could distract her from the boy's wide-eyed panic. Hold on, buddy, she called out. She could see dread painted across his face. We're coming for you. The boy's gaze shifted from her to the swirling water, and for a moment, he looked like he might let go. A wave of fierce protectiveness surged through Sarah. Just a little longer, her father encouraged as they inched closer. With each step, her heart pounded louder, drowning out all reason. When they reached him, her father leaned down, arms reaching out. "You're okay," he coaxed. "Just take my hand." Suddenly, the car shifted, the currents threatening to pull it under. Fear widened the boy's eyes. "I can't. I can't." "Sarah, reach for his other hand," her father urged. She leaped forward, feeling the biting cold of the water splash against her skin as she stretched her arm out. Time slowed as she grasped the boy's small hand in hers. They all pulled together, a desperate tug of hope against the unforgiving tide. The boy let out a choked sob, and Sarah felt tears sting her own eyes, her resolve tightening even more. With one powerful heave, they dragged him from the brink, collapsing onto the muddy ground as a collective gasp went up from the handful of spectators. Sarah wrapped the boy in her arms, cradling him tightly. "You're safe now," she whispered, feeling the rapid rise and fall of his tiny chest against her. Yet the moment of triumph quickly soured. With a bone-rattling crash, another piece of the porch collapsed, sending debris flying. A wave crashed over them, soaking them to the bone. Panic erupted again. "Get him to safety," her father shouted above the chaos. The urgency pressed down on them all, amplifying the fear in Sarah's chest. As they struggled to push through the throng of people, Sarah's mind raced. They can't keep risking everything, but was it any better to stand still? And just when they thought they could catch their breath, a shrill scream echoed through the air, drawing her attention. A woman was trapped under an overturned boat, panic etched on her face. "Sarah!" Her father's voice was nearly lost to the chaos, but she could see his eyes wide with concern. "I can't let her stay there," she shouted, shaking. Could she really do it again? Could they save one more life, or would this be the moment everything fell apart? As she darted towards the overturned wreck, her heart thudded. The choice lay ahead of her: a leap into deeper waters or leaving someone behind. What choice would Sarah make when faced with that one last impossible decision? The moment Sarah sprinted toward the overturned boat, her determination surged like the tide threatening to engulf them all. Every agonizing second weighed heavy on her. She could feel her father's anxious gaze pierce through the cacophony, urging her onward. The chaos around her blurred, all that remained was the woman beneath the wreck, gasping for air, her eyes wide with fear. "Hang on!" Sarah shouted, her voice rising above the roar of the storm. With each step, the cold water pulled at her legs, making her feel like she was wading through molasses. She pushed harder, her heart pounding in rhythm with the frantic beat of rescue. "Sarah, wait. We need a plan." Her father's voice came again, laced with worry. But there was no time for plans. "She's in trouble. We can't let her drown." The woman beneath the boat struggled to break free, her strength fading. An urgency seized Sarah, and with adrenaline coursing through her veins, she dove into the water, reaching out instinctively. "Grab my hand," she yelled, her arms stretching toward the trapped woman. She could see the fear etched on the woman's face, the imminent panic growing as the water threatened to pull her further down. "Please. I can't breathe." The plea twisted Sarah's heart. She could feel her father behind her, yelling for help, but she was committed now, deep in the fight for another life. "Just a little bit farther," Sarah coaxed, each word dripping with determination. The cold bit at her skin, but she barely noticed. All she saw was the woman's desperate face, her eyes filled with terror. A group of volunteers joined them at the edge of the wreck, urgent voices mixing with the roar of the storm. "We need to lift it," someone shouted. "On 3. Her father urged, his voice steady despite the chaos. 1, 2, 3. With a collective effort, they used every ounce of strength to heave the overturned boat, the effort straining their muscles. Sarah felt the weight shift. There was chaos around her, but her focus remained sharp as she braced for what came next. "Sarah, now!" She lunged forward, her arms slipping just beneath the surface. Her fingers brushed the woman's frail wrist. "I've got you," she cried, gripping tightly. "Pull her out," someone shouted. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. Taking in a deep breath, they all gave one massive heave, and the boat tilted just enough for Sarah to pull the woman free. As they emerged, gasping for air, the scene seemed to slow in that euphoric moment. The woman clung to Sarah, their eyes locking. Relief washed over both of them. But the fleeting joy shattered as another wave hit, harder this time, knocking them back. "Hold on," Sarah shouted, anxiety slipping into her voice. The ground beneath her gave way, and the water whirled frantically around them. Struggling against the currents, Sarah yanked her arms toward the shore, her father's hand finding her waist as they fought to keep their footing. The woman, still panting, clutched the baby close, his safety becoming the center of their world. "We need to get to higher ground," her father roared, pulling them away from the impending tide. With renewed urgency, they stumbled toward the nearest retreat, but Sarah's heart still raced. There was a growing unease that more people needed help, that they hadn't finished the fight yet. "Are you okay?" she asked the woman, whose breath was still ragged. I think so," the woman stammered, her eyes shimmering with gratitude and shock. Just then, another scream pierced the air. A familiar voice. "Sarah! Over here. We need you." Her heart dropped. Who was calling? What if they were in trouble? There was no hesitation now. Sarah turned to her father, a new determination glinting in her eyes. "Let us go." And as they ran toward the sound, Sarah felt the tug of something deeper than just fear and chaos. It was purpose, a lighthouse in the raging storm. But she couldn't shake the feeling that each choice carried weight. Life and death rested on her shoulders. What awaited her at the next call, and could they change the tide of despair into hope? As they pushed through the swirling waters, the screams kept coming, echoing in Sarah's mind. The frantic cries of children and adults blurred together, a haunting symphony of desperation that whipped around her like the angry winds. Her father moved beside her, his expression a mix of concern and determination that mirrored her own. "Where is it coming from?" he shouted, trying to make sense of the chaos. "Over there." Sarah pointed toward a section of the beach barely visible through the rain. Shadows flailed, and silhouettes struggled, a clear sign that more souls were trapped in the clutches of the rising tide. The urgency in her gut drove Sarah forward, faster despite the icy water still lapping at their legs. They reached the cluster of people fighting against the relentless push of deepening waves. A young boy stood on a rocky outcrop, crying out for his mother, who was vanished beneath the rolling surf. Panic washed over Sarah as she spotted a small child clinging to driftwood, eyes wide and unshed tears shimmering in the dim light. "Hold on," Sarah shouted as she charged toward the boy, her father trailing closely behind her. She reached the child on the driftwood and threw her arms around him to steady him against the onslaught of the waves. "You've got to be brave. We're going to get you to safety." The little boy looked up at her, his face a mix of fear and confusion. "My mom. She's gone." His voice trembled, and it shattered Sarah's heart into a million pieces. "We'll find her, I promise," she assured him, her spirit unwavering as she scanned the tumultuous waters. But with every passing second, the current grew stronger. She could feel the sea tugging at her legs, threatening to pull her under. "Sarah!" her father yelled, his voice a lifeline amidst the chaos. "We need to stay together. We can't risk getting separated." But the mother's cries echoed like a beacon of hope. She was somewhere out there, and the boy couldn't be left alone. "I'll go, Dad," Sarah shouted. "Just hold him tight." With determination fueling her, Sarah plunged back into the tide, her heart racing as gravity and fear fought against her. Every inch felt like an eternity as she swam, searching, calling out over the crashing waves. "Mom! Where are you?" Her voice rang out, mixing with the roiling waters. Just then, she spotted a figure tangled among the debris, struggling to stay afloat. The woman's arms flailed, desperation written all over her face. "Help!" she gasped, her voice barely penetrating the storm. "Stay calm. I'm coming," Sarah cried, forcing her way through the waves. She reached out to grasp the woman's wrist. "I've got you. Just hold on." Their eyes locked, the woman's fear morphing into a glimmer of hope. Sarah pulled with every ounce of strength left in her. Finally, with a desperate surge and one final push, she dragged the woman free. The relief that washed over them was instant, a fleeting moment of warmth in the tempest. "Mom!" The boy cried from the shore, his small voice punctuated with sheer joy. But Sarah could feel the pull of the tide still, the weight of both women and the boy's safety forcing her to focus. She knew they had only moments left before the water would break even more fiercely across the rocky shore. "Come on," Sarah urged, adrenaline propelling her to keep moving. "We need to get back." As they made their way through the chest-high water, the wind picked up, howling like an abandoned wolf. Behind them, other voices struggled, cries for help mingled with the noise of the storm. Sarah's father joined them, urgency stretching his features. "More people need us," he yelled, eyes searching. "But I can't," Sarah stammered, glancing back at the chaos, the ache in her heart growing as fear gripped her mind. They had saved 2 lives, but was it enough? "Together," her father said firmly, his grip tightening around her arm. "One step at a time, we'll find them." Just as they started to move, another splash echoed nearby, a desperate figure rising through the waves. Sarah's heart leapt. What fresh peril awaited them now? "Sarah, look!" her father shouted. A flash of movement caught her eye, and suddenly, hope wrestled with terror in her stomach. Could they really change the tide of despair into hope again? Determined, they pressed on, but in this harrowing night, was there still time to save everyone? The winds howled like a desperate cry, the skies still cloaked in chaos as Sarah and her father forged ahead. With every footstep, the weight of the storm mirrored the burdens of their hearts. They were fighting not just for survival, but for their very place in the world, a world that was as unpredictable as the waters swirling around them. "Sarah! Over here!" The muffled voice of a volunteer broke through, drawing them closer. A group had formed, bedraggled and trembling, holding hands tightly together. "We need all the help we can get. There are people trapped over there." Her heart raced. "Let us go," she shouted, the determination pouring out of her like a beacon. They plunged into the fray, each face a story, every moment a plea for compassion. Together, they could do this together, they'd fight. Pushing through the throngs of frightened people, Sarah felt her spirit ignite once more. Each child they rescued, each parent they reunited, added fire to her soul. They were not just saving lives, they were reclaiming hope on this treacherous night. Suddenly, amid the chaos, she spotted the boy they had saved, finding his mother, tears cascading down their faces as they embraced. "You found me," she heard the boy shout, and Sarah's heart swelled. It reminded her of the bond she yearned for, not only with Jake but with her father standing beside her, a father who was finally reaching toward redemption. The search continued on, panic weaving through the air like a thread of anguish, but now fueled by a collective spirit. Voices unified in determination. "We can't stop. We must keep going." It was a symphony of resolve that coursed through the crowd, the laughter of reunions mingling with cries of despair. But memories swirled like the shifting tides. Sarah's mind raced to the storm within her heart, the fear that had once kept her shackled. No more would she let doubt drown her dreams for herself or Jake. She turned to her father, their gazes locking, and in that moment, she saw mutual understanding. They were changing, evolving together. It wasn't just about the lives they were saving. It was about reclaiming the family they could become. "Keep moving," her father shouted. With renewed energy, they twisted through the water, darting toward a cluster of trapped individuals. But just as they reached them, a powerful wall of water surged forward, sweeping through like an unyielding tide. "Hold on!" her father roared, lunging to reach a woman hanging onto a tree branch, panic flashing in her eyes. Sarah's heart pounded. They weren't done yet, there were still lives to save. Rushing toward the scene, she felt her feet grip the earth beneath her, a notion of strength filling her despite the turmoil. Together. She yelled, her voice breaking through fear. Hold on tight. We'll pull you up. Hope ignited anew as they formed a human chain, pulling the frightened woman to safety. One by one, they dragged souls from despair into hope, each life saved fueling another. With every embrace, a small part of Sarah's healed old wounds began knitting together, the threads of love and resilience sewing a tapestry of joy through the darkness. Then, a scatter of voices erupted as another wave crashed, sending panic rippling through the crowd. There's someone stuck in the debris. A volunteer cried out. Sarah turned to her father, a spark of determination igniting once again. Let us go. They shouted in unison, hearts pounding. Pushing through the chaos, they reached the source of the cries, a small girl trapped in rubble, tears streaking down her dirty face. Please don't leave me. She whimpered, a wave of helplessness washing over the scene. Time stood still for Sarah. She saw herself in that little girl, the longing for safety, belonging, love. Hold on, we're here. Sarah promised, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Together, with the help of others, they began removing debris. It felt monumental, shaky and uncertain. The boy they saved earlier held onto her father's arm tightly, a symbol of hope. As they pulled apart the last of the wreckage, the girl emerged. Trembling but safe. Her cries faded, replaced with the soft sound of grateful relief, and as they embraced, Sarah felt warmth envelop her heart. We did it. She exclaimed breathlessly, glancing nervously around her. But as they all shared their gratitude and relief, a roar shook the ground. The unstable structures moaned, teetering dangerously. Get to safety. Move. Her father commanded, urgency palpable in his voice. With adrenaline still pumping, Sarah gathered up the children. Jake's laughter and cries echoed in her mind, urging her forward. We can't give up now. Keep moving, everyone. We can do this. Just ahead, a wide clearing waited, a safe harbor from the chaos. They surged forward, driven by hope and determination for each other, for themselves, and for the community now united in spirit through shared struggle. As dawn broke, the once dark skies began to fade, light filtering through to wash over the wreckage, glistening as if a promise was being forged anew. They had salvaged lives, rekindled connections, and stepped together into a new reality, a reality where hope and love flourished, rising stronger than any storm they had faced. With tears of gratitude streaming, Sarah embraced her father, the weight of their shared fears beginning to lift, a connection born of hardship and the journey toward redemption. The past would always be there, but it wouldn't define them anymore. We made it, her father whispered, revealing a radiant smile. It was a promise, a moment of recognition. They had changed. Together, they had weathered the worst of storms and emerged stronger, a family finding its way home. As they stood hand in hand, the dawn of a new beginning lit the horizon, revealing the path forward. This is the moment for you. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because you know it makes a huge difference for us. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this inspiring ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this transformation. True fans understand the importance of supporting our channel through these actions.